Welcome to the Interrupter Podcast, where we encourage you to interrupt your everyday life by challenging your current circumstances. Join us every Friday for fun, inspiring personal stories that are sure to keep you laughing and wanting more than your average life. We'll bring you thought-provoking stories from successful entrepreneurs across the country. Now, here's your host, Lindsay, the Interrupter.
Hi, everyone. This is Lindsay here, and I'm excited to have with me Shirley Blanch, and she is from England. She is a mindfulness coach and meditation coach, and I'm going to let her explain to us what she does and how she came about coaching and share with us a little bit more in depth of her field of interest.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for inviting me here today to talk to you. Yeah, so as Lindsay said, I'm a mindfulness coach and meditation teacher. So what I do is I help people incorporate mindfulness into their everyday lives in ways that suit them, because we're all very different. So it's finding the right thing for everyone. And then for people that want to meditate, I help them get into meditation, essentially, because I think people think that meditation is just one thing, but what most people don't realize is there's lots of different types of meditation. And in actual fact, different types of meditation activate slightly different parts of the brain. So different people will be drawn to different types of meditation. So if you've ever tried meditating and it's not worked for you, it could just be that you've not found the right kind of meditation for you. So I just help people find a love for meditation and help them fit that into their lives as well.
Well, that is very exciting to hear. I have had my own personal struggles with getting into the practice of meditating, and I feel like I'm a very mindful person. However, I do believe that there's a lot that I could learn from you and discover new ways, especially to tap into that meditation piece. What strategies would you recommend for someone who struggles with meditation or has struggled with it in the past?
I think you've got to find something that works for you. There is no one size fits all with meditation, as there is no one size fits all really for anything in life. And what I did is I've come through a sort of slightly strange angle. I started meditating with a group of healers, having lost my father to cancer. And he was very, very much helped at the end by a healer. We come from a family where we've never think of doing anything like healing or be open to anything like that. But actually, when the medical profession turns around and says they can't do anything for you anymore, that's the time I think a lot of people go and they start looking at maybe alternative things. And certainly towards the end of his life, my father was in a huge amount of pain. He was on all the medication that he could possibly have at that point. So somebody said, why don't you take him to this healer? She's really amazing. And she would do healing with him. And he was just completely out of pain and he would come home and sleep, and at that point, that for us was just incredible. That was an amazing thing to have. And I'm sort of skeptical enough to look at it and think, well, what's going on here really? It's not that there's some sort of magical thing happening, but whatever she's doing is she's getting him into such an intense state of relaxation and calm that his own pain-killing mechanisms are kicking in and he's resting and he's healing. So, after losing him, I got very, very interested in this as a subject. So actually, the first type of meditation I learned was from a group of healers. I just went and joined a local meditation group run by a group of healers. So I maybe didn't go into it in the sort of the really fixed way that other people may have approached meditation. And actually, I have to say that I found it really hard to start with. So we would do guided meditations every week. I think it helps if you're a part of a group because you have that kind of, it's difficult at the moment. I mean, we're in lockdown here. I don't know what it's like where you are. So there's social interaction that we would normally have, we don't have. But I really loved that, just going and being with a group of really loving, open people and sitting with them every week. And actually, it was an hour and a half away from my kids. If I'm honest, it was an hour and a half away, which I just took back for myself. So I didn't even care that I found it a struggle. It was something for me. And this was all guided meditation. And this is what I would say to people to get into it to start with. Don't try sitting in silence, you're going to really struggle. I've worked my way up to doing meditation in silence, but to start with, I would just have to follow guided meditations. And the great thing about guided meditations is that you're just following a script that somebody else is saying. So you haven't really got a chance for your mind to wander too much. So you're following what someone's saying and you're focusing on that, and you're just listening to the story and you're just visualizing that. But all the time you're doing that, you're not worrying about all the stuff that's been worrying you before you stepped into that place. So it's a really good distraction to go and focus on that. The other good thing about guided meditation is, you know, you have to be a bit careful with meditation. So I'm going to just put a little bit of a disclaimer out there as well. So meditation's a really safe practice. Like pretty much anyone can do it. But if you've suffered from a lot of trauma in your life, or you've, you know, suppressed a lot of things, or maybe repressed a lot of things, sometimes people go along and they take themselves these very intense meditation retreats, and it allows a lot of things to come up that they've maybe been pushing down for a really long time. And you've then got to have in place things to help you deal with the stuff that comes up. You know, also, if you have certain types of epilepsy, you have to be a bit careful, because it can be a trance-induced epilepsy, for instance. And also, if you have things like psychosis, you have to be a bit careful. So, you know, if you've got any concerns, it is best to get some medical advice before you start a meditation practice. But the thing with the guided meditation is, because you're kind of following the script, it doesn't allow you to sort of sit there and for the things that you've been suppressing to really come up. So it's a nice, gentle way of introducing yourself to meditation, and you're not having to think too much, and you're not having to quiet your mind too much, because you're just getting used to sitting and focusing on something for a bit.
I absolutely love that, because I have wondered why are you unable to sit in silence?
Yeah.
So it makes me, you know, it helps me to feel a little bit better knowing, okay, that's not where you start. You work your way up to that point. So that is encouraging to hear. My life coach actually does a lot of guided meditations, and during some of my deepest struggles, I would actually go to sleep with those playing, simply to calm my mind so that I could relax. And I used them in that scenario. Now that, you know, I've worked past a lot of those struggles, and I'm more, you know, business, you know, mindset and working towards my business goals, I desire to have a deeper level of mindfulness and meditation, so that way I can have more clarity about what direction I want my business to go in. And I've began to judge my journey and say, why are you unable to do this? So it's like I can give myself some grace and recognize that it's an exercise. You know, I'm going to work my way up to that. So I definitely appreciate that perspective and on all of it. So what are various ways that you can meditate and practice mindfulness? And if you want to go into two separate subjects.
Yeah. Yeah, let's clarify that, because there is mindfulness meditation, and that is one type of meditation, but not all meditation is mindfulness meditation. And there is mindfulness practice that can be done without meditation as well. So I see them as two very distinct things. And actually, my favorite types of meditation aren't necessarily mindfulness meditations, even though I'm a mindfulness coach, but I love mindfulness for the everyday activities and using that as a tool for that. So what I would say is, and this is based on my own personal experience about how, you know, I've worked as somebody, you can hear how much I talk, and however much I talk is how much my brain is going all the time. And I would say, look, if I can do it, you know, if I can do it, anyone, honestly, I know people say this stuff, but anyone can do it. And you have to recognize that your brain is designed to think. Right. So don't try stopping your brain from thinking, because you're fighting against what is natural. So if you kind of view it as the thoughts that you're having are like waves on the top of the sea, you can kind of just distract yourself to the bottom of the ocean, which is very, very calm. And so that's the way that I like to think of meditation. What I would say is, as well, is when you're looking at the guided meditations, find the right guided meditation for you. Find someone's voice you like. You know, that's really important. Like if you're doing a meditation and you've got someone's voice that really grinds you, you know, it's not really not going to work for you. Also, you have to be a bit careful about your own. This is why I say it's really not a one size fits all. So I've sat in groups where somebody's been trying to guide a meditation in a cave, and you've got someone there who's claustrophobic and they're like, I'm not getting in the cave. Or someone that's sitting on a beach, you know, and they're like, I'm agoraphobic. I don't want to be sitting out on a beach. You know, so you have to really find the right meditation for you, and you have to make sure it fits into your life, and it shouldn't feel like work. You know, like it should feel like a retreat. It needs to be that you kind of want to do it because you do it, and then you just feel really good afterwards. But it is like anything. It's like going to the gym. It's like anything, any kind of regular exercise. It's finding the right time to get it into practice. So everybody will say to me, well, what's the best time of the day to meditate? And I'm like, the best time of the day to meditate is the time you can find some time to do it in your life. Yeah. Like there might be benefits to doing it on an empty stomach first thing in the morning or last thing at night, or, you know, whatever. There may well be. But in reality, we're all living busy lives. So it's about finding that time and not just thinking, I'm going to find a few minutes every day. No, slot out some time and make sure that that is your time and you're sitting there and you're having that time to yourself. And that's the time that you meditate. And for me, it used to be, okay, well, look, I've got 10 minutes before I pick the kids up from school. Like that's it. If it's only that, then that's it. But I would make sure that I would do that every day, because the really interesting thing for me was the first thing that I noticed when I started doing regular meditation practice wasn't that I felt calmer. It's actually that I stopped getting ill. And that was really interesting because I'd never associated the two things. I'd never thought, oh, well, I'm really stressed, and so that's why I'm catching colds all the time or getting unwell all the time. What if I do the opposite to that? Maybe my immune system will respond better to that. And that was honestly the first thing that I noticed, which was really interesting. So I kind of went from going from full-on guided meditations, not being able to, even if they said, look, 5 minutes, you've got 5 minutes to just be sitting there by yourself without being guided. I'm like, I can't even do that. Like, I really couldn't. But then after a while, the guided meditations became too much. I was like, no, I don't want to hear someone's voice now. Now I need the space a bit more. Now I need to look between the words. So sometimes it's like focusing in between the things, you know, and I just wanted more of that peace. And so I thought, I can't listen to these guided meditations anymore. So I actually stopped going to the group, the meditation groups, because it was like, I need something different now. And so for then I still didn't want the silence. So I moved on to music. So I would have background music that I really, really liked. And then eventually I kind of was like, no, that's even too much now. And then I moved into doing silent meditations, but it really was like a gradual process.
So it's more about focusing on the intention of what works for you than fitting in someone else's cookie mold, so to speak. You know,
as with life. You know, as with life, find the right kind of, I'm a really visual person. So I actually went on and I did, you know, some healer training. So I did my healer training, like a year-long training. And part of that is looking at the energy centers in the body, and they all have different colors. And so, you know, they're called chakras. And so I love a chakra meditation because I'm an artistic, creative person. So that's got colors in it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in the energy stuff. If you love colors and you're a creative person, then just do, you know, something that's connecting the mind and the body, and you're looking at the colors, and that's fantastic. You can do healing meditations where you're focusing on sending out healing to people. You can do meditations where you're connected to your body. You can do body scan meditations. That's one of the mindfulness practices where you're just bringing your attention to different parts of the body without judgment, but it's just, again, it's focused attention away from all the thoughts that might be worrying you. You can do mantra meditations, because I talk a lot, so I love a mantra meditation. And that's where you're just repeating something over and over again. And again, that act of repeating again and again and again and again and again. And you take something that has no meaning to you, because you don't want your emotions going up and down. So you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to be happy. I want to be happy. Because if you focus on happiness, you have to focus on the opposite of happiness as well. So you want to sort of detach from all emotions that you would normally have and just find a place of peace. You know, so it's about finding peace. So you're becoming the observer of your experience. So a great like little mantra that I do with people is, I am blissful, I'm peaceful. Like, you know, you're just saying that over and over and over and over again. And I found actually the mantra meditations for me were the ones, because I talk a lot, that would really get me into the sort of deepest trance levels. But other people I know will love the body scan meditation. Other people I know will love doing the more visualized, colorful meditations. And I do think it's just everybody finds their preference. But the really interesting thing is that the more you do different types of meditation, you're obviously activating all different types of parts of the brain. And so the more different ones you do, the more you're kind of encouraging whole brain integration, if you like. So I always try and encourage, even like a loving kindness meditation that will, be slightly different from a visualized guided meditation, from a mindfulness meditation, from a mantra meditation. So I try and encourage in the groups that I run for us to try all sorts of different ones, because if there's one that you find really hard, that might be the part of your brain you need to activate the most. So that's the kind of meditation thing. The mindfulness thing is totally different. So mindfulness is about bringing attention intentionally to the present moment and not judging the present moment. And so the two really important aspects I always think to mindfulness is the present moment awareness. And the reason that works so well is because whenever we stress and worry about things, we're always worried about what's happened in the past that we can't change, or we're trying to predict the worst possible outcome for the future because we think somehow that's going to prepare us for it. And in reality, it doesn't prepare us for it, because those things quite often don't happen anyway. And even if they do, we don't feel better for it, having worried about it for months or weeks in advance. We've probably just not thinking clearly about it because we got ourselves so stressed out. So when we bring ourselves into the present moment, so I'm sure, Lindsay, if I said to you, look, tell me all your worries, we could sit here, we could be here for a while chatting about all those things. But right here, right now, where all you've got to do is listen to my voice speaking, and you're just sitting on a chair and you're, looking at a computer screen, you're just sitting here listening to my voice right here, right now, in the present moment, you have no worries. Right. And certainly, that is one of the most powerful things I think people find from mindfulness, is bringing yourself the power of now, bringing yourself into the present moment, giving yourself permission to not worry, actually, as well. I think we're quite often not given permission. It's okay. You cannot worry. It doesn't make bad things happen just because you don't worry about them. So that's that. And then not judging things, because again, as soon as we start judging anything, whether it's good or bad, we're having an emotional response to that. Mm-hmm. And actually, how many times does something happen and you think, oh, this is the worst thing that could have happened? And then as things progress, you look back and you go, actually, that was a good thing that happened. So actually, we quite often don't know until things have come to their end whether things are good or bad anyway. So taking that judgment away takes that emotional response away and helps us to emotionally regulate better.
Love that. I absolutely love that. That's something that over my past 2 years of intentional healing and on my healing journey, I have allowed myself to have a view of my journey and say, hey, you're judging again. Like, don't judge your journey, allow things to happen. And as things evolve, you'll understand, why they happened, and trust the process. That's something that, again, my life coach mentions a lot. She's always reminding us to trust the process, trust the journey, and embrace the present moment. So I absolutely love that. That completely resonates with me. I'm curious, you talked about group meditations, and a lot of my audience are parents with children. So I'm curious, as we've talked about this a little bit deeper, is that something that you could do with your children and have guided meditations with your children? Or what are some tips that you would give to parents who are interested in making this possibly a family practice? Obviously, I'm sure there's a great reason to have their own separate intentional time of meditation for their personal selves. But what would you advise, or would you say that that's something that would be good for our family to integrate this into their routine and their family life?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Now, and I have to say as well, with my own journey into mindfulness, I actually started to learn how to teach mindfulness to children because I wanted to help my own children, because I've got 2 boys who are very in touch with their emotions. And, one of my sons is having some bullying at school. And I thought, actually, do you know what? I want him to have some tools and some strategies to help him. So my motivation really did come from the point of view as being a parent and wanting to empower myself as a parent over and above anything else. I never really intended to do this as a job. And so what I did was I went and learned mindfulness. So I'm going to say a couple of things now. One, mindfulness is a really great resource, but I think it's best when it's combined with emotional resilience practices as well. Because I think, mindfulness isn't the panacea that maybe some people think it is. It's a tool to be used with other tools as well, which is really, really important. The second thing is that I made mindfulness the least cool thing in the world to my kids. And so they are never, ever going to do mindfulness or meditation. and they were just too old at that point, like by the time I got into it, they were just like, oh, mum's doing this weird thing. But what they have done is they have seen me put into practice these things for myself, and they have found their own strategies. So now my eldest son, who's now 18, he plays the guitar, and he just decided to play the guitar because he wanted to find his own meditation. Okay. So although they haven't taken on exactly the mindfulness or meditation practices I have, what I've modeled to them is good emotional regulation practice, and they have found their own way with it. So I'm just putting that out there, because if you have parents out there that really want their children to do it and their children really resistant to doing it, what I want to say is you doing it yourself is one of the most powerful things that you can do, because what you're doing is, one, you're a much calmer person to be around. And this is because it's been shown that the more you do sort of regular meditation practice, you actually change the reactivity of the amygdala in the brain, which is the sort of stress center of the brain. So you're less reactive. So you're going to be better parent anyway, because you're going to be less reactive and you're going to be more online and more clear thinking. So that's first of all. Second of all, what we want to do is we want to create the right culture in our homes that encourage good practice, so it's not just about sitting down and doing the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and then walking away and everyone getting angry again. It's about actually creating a culture of calm in the home where these things are talked about. So just talking about it, just talking about how we calm down, so the reason I'm saying that is because people might think, well, the only way to practice mindfulness or good, emotional well-being strategies is to sit down and actually do it in a group. But actually there's lots of things that we can incorporate into our homes to encourage that. And one of the most powerful things we can do as parents is modeling and interactive modeling. So we say, okay, well, I'm going to go and meditate now because that's a really good thing for me. That's a really good thing to keep me calm. And so when I'm angry, what I do is I'm going to just take a few breaths now, and I'm going to do this because I'm feeling my emotion, and actually verbalizing it and showing what you're doing is interactively modeling. And I teach this stuff to teachers as well, because it's really, really important that we're giving good examples to young people and children to follow. So that's the first thing I would say is, working on yourself is not a separate practice to working with your children. And I do sometimes have parents kind of contact me and saying, can you come and fix my kid? They're so stressed. And I'm like, okay, shall we start with you? Because that's really what, you've got to think that when we evolved as human beings and we lived in tribes, and the young ones would look to the elders to see how to respond. Is this a dangerous situation? Should I be worried? And so when they see us reacting in stress and fear, they pick up on that stress and fear, and so how we respond to things has a huge impact. But yeah, definitely there are some really great practices that you could do. What I would say again is it's about getting some regular time where everybody knows that it's a good thing to just do and sit down, make it fun. Because who's going to want to sit down if it's going to be really boring? And actually a lot of the time our kids just want our attention. They just want a bit of time with us to actually sit and listen. So there's some strategies that I would recommend, and I would say there's loads of practices out there, there's loads of resources out there, but I would say one of the really great things that I love to do is I love to do strength card work. And this is where you write down, or you can download them offline, or you can buy them, but they're all just like little strengths, individual strengths that we all have. So it could be, loving, it can be caring, it can be sporty, it can be artistic, it can be whatever. And you get these little cards, and I just print them off and laminate them, or you just type out the words and you print them off. For younger children, you can just have pictures with the words on them, so it helps their literacy. And you just have these little cards, and everybody has to choose so many cards themselves, and they just have to talk about themselves in a positive way. Now, this may not fit into like the strict kind of mindfulness type of thing, but the reason that I really love it is it encourages us to all talk about ourselves positively, which we don't. you know, and everybody talks about self-love, but then if you go and you put, you know, on social media, hey, I'm feeling really good about myself right now, I'm really loving myself, people will go, oh, look at her, she really loves herself, you know. So we don't tend to do that in society, you know. We tend to play ourselves down a bit more to be sort of more socially acceptable, if you like. So it's a really great way to really start encouraging your children to start talking about themselves really positively, and just highlighting some of the things that are great about them that aren't necessarily linked to school. Because also I think quite often when we give our children praise, it's linked to, oh, you did really well in that test, well done, that was fantastic. And we don't necessarily turn around and go, oh, you were so caring there, that was amazing, that's such a great strength that you have. And it's not that we don't think that, but we just tend not to verbalize it. So just doing that, you know, and if you have children and they're sort of struggling to think of something to say that's positive about themselves, just say, well, what are you good at, you know? And even if they say something like, well, I'm good at video games, you go, wow, that's amazing, because you have to sit there and you know, so you have to concentrate and you have to focus and you must have really good hand-eye coordination. So whatever they come up with, don't judge it and say, well, that's not a thing to be good at, you know. You embrace it, whatever it is, and then you pick out the strengths from that so that they start to notice what's good and unique about them. And that starts to change the language in our heads, because quite often we just say really negative things to ourselves over and over again. But what it also does is it really helps them to develop emotional literacy. So you can say to them, okay, so when you're doing this sport or where you're doing this drawing or whatever it is that you love to do, how does that make you feel? And then they'll start talking about how they feel when they're doing those things. And when our children can use great words to explain how they feel, it makes communication much easier. So then you're able to open up that communication about feelings, and they develop the illiteracy around language and communication. So I love that. A great thing you can do with the strength cards as well is get them to pick them out for each other, for their siblings, you know, for the parents, because how often do you know, your kids say something really lovely about you, but if you get them to pick out some cards, and then it gets this whole exchange going where everyone's talking about each other really nicely, and it just creates such a great environment. So that, and it's fun, and it's a fun game, and I think that's really important. And building on from that, you can do things like, you know, there's a 3-minute breathing space. It only takes 3 minutes to go from stress to calm. You know, there's loads of those out there. You know, there's one I do on my website, but if you don't like the way I do it, there's stacks out there. And just little quick things, and then you can just gradually build these things up more and more, and just do different ones. But I mean, I could give you dozens of little exercises if you want me to go on. It depends what you want.
I absolutely love that. The first thing that comes to mind when you were sharing that, one, it's very practical. Anyone can take that advice and put it into practice. It's also like this sifting process where you're bringing up the positive and sifting that up to the surface, where we tend naturally, I feel like, to focus on the negative. It will allow that to become, you know, exercising, sifting up the positive. And like you said, the literacy, emotional literacy of being able to communicate and share your feelings out loud in a natural way with the card prompts. You said they were called strength cards, correct?
Yeah.
And so it can become easier to talk about your feelings the more that this is practiced. So I absolutely love that practical advice there. So I feel like a lot of people are going to be very curious about more understanding of this, and they would love to connect and get to know you deeper and ways that you can help their families. How can people connect with you? What is a great way for them to access your resources and get in touch with you? It's a great way for them to get more of Shirley.
Well, I'm Get Mindful. So if you look at getmindful.co.uk, I'm there. If you want to go to Facebook at Get Mindful, I'm there. I'm on Instagram at Shirley Get Mindful. So yeah, if you want to get mindful, you can find me. And I'd love to connect with people, but probably my website's probably the easiest. I've got some resources on there. I've done a little journal, intention setting journal and planner with a little workbook thing there called Today is Going to Be Awesome. And, you know, so people can kind of find all those little things that I've done on there, and some little videos, meditation videos and stuff.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely put that information in the show notes, and we appreciate you joining us today. This has been amazing. It's definitely been an eye-opener for me. I will be making some strength cards, if not downloading some in the very near future, because I think that that would be such a fun practice. Me and my girls homeschool and we travel a good bit. So that could be something that even in all of those different changes and needing to be flexible there, we can instill that practice wherever we go and have some stability and consistency while adapting to our different environments. So I absolutely love that idea.
And the other thing that I would say as well, just like one more thing, which I think has been a really, really good practice to do, is get a set of values that everybody contributes to. So get a set of family values that everybody contributes to. So everybody feels like they've made the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So just the things that's important to everybody. And then if you have things come up, you can do collaborative problem solving on it, rather than a more traditional authoritarian approach of like, you've not done that. Well, we all agreed to these rules, so come on, we're all going to adhere to these values, but everybody's got a stake in it. And so how do you think that we can resolve this in alignment with our values? So I would just say that's just one more tip that I wanted to give to everybody, because I just think it's about creating this lovely environment of collaborative problem solving, because we all want the same thing at the end of the day, which is to feel good and have a better life,
and feel like our voice is being heard as well. So that sense of community within your home is a great place to start, so that they can take that out into their future and in their workplace as well, as they get older and decide which direction they want to go in life. So that's amazing. Well, Shirley, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a true pleasure. I'm so grateful for your time, and I look forward to sharing this with my network, connecting with you more over the season of my growth. And I really appreciate your time today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been wonderful. Well, we are going to head out, and we look forward to catching you on the next episode of The Interrupter. I look forward to bringing you more amazing guests who will interrupt your daily thinking and have you challenging your perspective and empowering yourself on your journey. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Words up that resonate, that make you feel certain emotions. I'm really big on emotional scaling. So I think just having the words up, so one of our values is love, one of our values is that, this, whatever, just having that around so that people are focusing on that. And because what we focus on becomes the biggest thing in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that visual reminder, it doesn't just have to be there when we kind of want to do some conflict resolution. Just seeing that every day just makes us think, oh yeah, that's what I love. That's what's important to me. That. And so you could have something like love. Well, what makes us feel love? Well, hugs makes us feel love, and being listened to makes us feel, and you can expand it out and make it whatever you want, but it's really good. And I love the whole idea of there's a guy called Professor, what's his name? I think it's Ross, and he did this great book called Lost at School, but also The Explosive Child. And it's all, and he says kids do well if they can. Like, no one really wants to get into trouble. So actually, if you start from that perspective, that when someone's acting out, it's because they're struggling with something rather than they're deliberately trying to be naughty, or they're trying to do something. And he was the one that really introduced me to the idea of collaborative problem solving, because it's like, what you do is you give them the problem to solve rather than you telling them what to do. So you say, okay, well, what's the problem? What's the problem here? When I've said to you, will you come and do this, and you don't want to do it, what is it that you're struggling with that? Why is that difficult for you? And what can we do to make this process better? And then you say nothing, because it's got to come from them. And when they come up with the solution, they're more likely to adhere to it. And I do this, my boys are, 15 and 18 now. And I realized that I couldn't have an authoritarian approach with two boys that were eventually going to be men. And, and what am I going to do? Say, sit on the naughty step, like, how's that going to work? Yeah. And so I take very much this collaborative approach. And it's like, if we disagree, know that I'm still coming from a place of love. If we disagree, I'm still coming from a place of love, and you tell me what you think. And I just want to have this conversation so you understand my perspective, but I want to hear yours as well. And then somewhere in the middle, we can find that resolution. And it's so much more effective than trying to tell people what to do.
Yeah. this value of diversity and accepting people where they are is something that I passionately desire to instill in my children. And I have to, like I said, like you were saying, it starts with yourself. So I've worked on my own self and, being aware of times that maybe I have judged another story, or I have, had these feelings of, oh, really? When, again, I have to show by example. So that has resonated with me too. So I really, really appreciate all of this, because I'm just super excited. I can't wait to share this with my network. So my group is around grace. That's the word that I clung to when I was going through some of my deepest, I had a cycle of self-sabotaging. And so when I embraced that word, grace, I was able to allow myself to slowly get out of self-sabotage and heal myself along the way. And so my group is an attitude of grace, and where I encourage people to give themselves grace, because at the end of the day, you can only do so much. So if you're in the depths of your cycle, stress cycle, drama cycle, self-sabotage, whatever your struggle is, at the end of the day, you're not going to get from the bottom of that valley all the way to the top of the mountain in a day. You have to give yourself grace to work up to that point of where you want to be. And so those topics will be great additional topics to go over.
I mean, I love that, because I've done stuff for myself on emotional eating, because I was just a lifetime of emotional eating, empath, people pleaser, toxic people pleaser, having to be good, having to adhere to everybody else's things, very non-confrontational, perfectionist, and eating my emotions, and actually really the answer to all of it was self-acceptance. And people talk about self-love, but actually before you get there, you just have to accept yourself, and really build from there. And actually then when you start to go from that place, you just make better decisions for yourself anyway, because you value yourself that much more. And you can make change from a place of fear, or you can make change from a place of love. And I love that word grace, because when you give yourself grace, you're just giving yourself love, actually. And you're coming from a place of love. And when you come from a place of love, and you're not making changes because you think you're not good enough, and you're making changes because you think you're worth it, that's the difference. And it has a totally different emotional response to it, and it has a totally different feeling to it. And that's the shift that I think people need to make, rather than this judgmental, I've got to change because I'm not good enough, and look, I've messed up again, and all that kind of stuff. When you come from that place of love, look, I just think if I look at myself and I want to change something, I think of it more as, and even with disease, actually, because obviously I got into this because of what happened to my father with the cancer and everything. It's you have to look at disease that manifests within the body. As I look at it like a teenager that is just misbehaving slightly, like people say you've got to fight cancer. Well, you're fighting yourself at that point then. And all you're going to do is you're going to just create more cortisol in your body, more adrenaline in your body, and you're just going to get more ill. So actually what you have to do is you have to love that, even that part of you that's misbehaving, and just look at it like it's just a teenager that's having a bit of a tantrum, and you still love that person, but you just know that if they get through that, then they're going to be better. It's not you don't love them, it's just you want to help them because you love them, and you want to help them get through that because you love them. And I think that's how we have to look at ourselves. It's I'm not changing you because I'm saying you're not good enough, I'm changing you because I can see all the possibilities of what you can be,
Yeah.
And I love you that much that I'll work with you, and we'll do that, and we'll get through that together. And that just has a totally different feeling for me. And as soon as I got to that place, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm going to eat all the really good foods now, because I actually just really love myself. And well, why wouldn't I?